want to be a champion, you need to train like one.
Let's go, George. We have 15 seconds. Let's pump it out, okay? There you go.
I'm Georges St-Pierre. Welcome to the abdominal strength and core conditioning workout.
Pump those legs, George. You gotta push hard.
Strength not only come from the bicep, it come from the hips.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is your chance to train with me, Georges St-Pierre.
Hi everyone, I'm Georges St-Pierre. Welcome to my Rush Fit warm-up. This program has been designed by Eric Owens.
The Rush Fit warm-up is a multifaceted warm-up that uses only body weight motions and allows you to work every muscle of your body in a functional manner to get you ready for the work to come and the rounds. So let's not waste too much time, guys. Let's go and get started here with a shoulder width stance, and we're just going to do some torso twist. So as you notice, I want to get my elbows up about shoulder height. They can dip down a little bit, that's okay. And I pick a good pivot point on the ground. I want to rotate back and forth. Imagine that my elbows, if there's a line, just about going about 180 degrees. If there's a sphere here, right? I don't want to go too far. I don't want to go all the way around here. I don't want to injure myself. Because remember, we're just warming up. We're trying to get the body loose, core temperature up, so we don't injure ourselves. And we're ready for the work to come.
The body is like an elastic. If you try to stretch an elastic when it's cold, it's gonna snap. If you try to stretch it when it's warm, now you're gonna be able to play with it.
Now we're doing each exercise for 60 seconds. So right now we have about 10 seconds left, and then we're gonna switch and go into our next exercise, which is a side bend. Let's keep going though, guys. We have about 5 seconds. All right, good job. So now here in our stance, we're just going to lean to one side, kicking our hip out, reaching over, then going to the other side. This is a side bend, and what we don't want to do is we don't want to bend forward and then over. We want to keep our body stacked, meaning knee, hip, shoulder, everything in alignment. We let the hip kick out to the side and we reach. This is going to be stretching the muscles of the hips and of the lats, and this is a very important movement pattern. In most functional fitness and in fighting, you have to be able to move side to side as well as forward and backwards.
Like every other exercise, you start slowly and you try to pick it up as time goes on.
Now we have about 20 seconds left in this. And also work at your own rate. If you find you're starting to fatigue, the form's starting to go away, step back, maybe take a few deep breaths, and get back at it. 10 more seconds, guys.
Warm-up is very important. It prevents injuries and it allowed us to have our full range of motion.
Okay, great job. Now let's turn and face this direction, and we're gonna come down onto our fingers, walking out into the plank position, and we're going to walk our feet up to our hands. You just turn, switch directions, and go back in the other direction. This is a great way to stretch all the muscles on the back side of the body. We're also activating the core. We're starting to get things a little bit, the difficulty is increasing here now. So you might find that your body temperature is increasing. That's good. You should be starting to sweat probably around this point, maybe within a couple more exercises. The difficulty, the complexity is going to increase. And one of the things you might notice, so Victoria, if you can, let's do a modification. Let's do a bent knee modification. So Victoria happens to have great flexibility, but if her flexibility wasn't so good, she's going to come up like this. She's going to kind of tuck under, and she's going to lower down with a bent knee position. That's going to allow her to get down there on the ground, walk herself out, and if she walks her feet up, she'll also do it in a bent knee position. All right, great job, Victoria. Okay, about 5 more seconds, guys. Let's try to get one more. Okay. Now up and standing, we're going to take a move from capoeira, okay? We're going to do the jingo. We're going to go side to side, so it's like a backward lunge. We bring one hand in front, so yeah, your defend hand up a little bit higher, George, come up in front of the face, and we go side to side. This is a great move, about fluidity. Basically, it's a backward lunge. We go side to side, and capoeira has some very effective techniques, and this is one of the base moves of capoeira. I'm sure none of us are very good at it, but still a fun exercise, and it's a great variation of a lunge.
Capoeira, it's a martial art from Brazil. It's also a style of dancing.
Yeah. And this is one of their base motions. It's a great way to warm up the body. Moving back and forth. We have the coordination here. We're lunging back with one leg, then back with the other. About 10 more seconds to go here, and then we're going to do our walkout push-up. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, now here, shoulder width stance. We're going to lower down, squatting. We're going to walk out into the full push-up position. Hands underneath the shoulders, lower down, then come back up. Try to stress getting a full range of motion here. So you squat all the way down, get your hands into the ground, you walk out to get your hands underneath your shoulders. You don't want them far back, you don't want them too far forward. A good alignment, lower down, chest to the deck, press all the way up, then back into standing. Okay, now we're about halfway into it, guys, so 30 more seconds. And you'll notice as when they come back up into the standing position, we want to make sure our heels get on the ground before we stand up. And let's check out Victoria's form here. So if you start to fatigue a little bit, it's okay to lower down your knees. It's also okay to restrict your range of motion if necessary. If you can't lower all the way down, what you don't want to have happen is lead with your head or collapse in the core. You want to keep the core activated at all times. Maintain good alignment, ear, shoulder, hip, knee, ankle. Okay, now back in the standing, guys. We're going to come here, feet together, and lateral lunges going side to side. Try to imagine your feet are running on parallel lines here. We don't want our toes pointing too far out or too far in. When we take our step out too, we want to sit back into our heel. Notice how the trail leg stays straight. The lead leg is a leg that bends. The hands raise up as a counterbalance, and that's also activating the muscles in the shoulders, giving us a full body warm up. Remember, functional training is about using all muscles of the body, not just one or two. Halfway there, guys. And if you notice, they're not working at a breakneck speed. The speed is enough to make sure that they're working, but yet this isn't really a workout yet. This is, remember, it's a warm-up. We're just getting the body warm and loose. If you're finding you're out of breath and you're about to pass out, you probably need to slow down a little bit and do a little bit less repetitions. Find your own speed and figure out what works for you.
It's important to make the blood circulate everywhere, in every muscle, in every joint of our body, to prevent injuries. You know, it's very important.
Okay, now here in our stance, let's lower it down. We're going to walk out, and we're going to do our push-up with a lateral hold here, okay? So we're going to come up, a lateral plank. We lower down to the push-up and back out. All right, guys, let's get on it. Walk out, and once you get out into that push-up position, you're going to maintain that push-up position. So they're all the way down, you open up, you rotate. So notice how they rotate on their feet completely. They rotate. Then after they hold a 5-second hold, they lower back down. Good. And if you find that a 5-second hold is not really challenging, try to hold it 10 seconds. Try to hold 20 seconds. Try to hold 30 seconds. Do the best you can. But 5 seconds usually does the trick. And the key is you don't want your core to sag. You want to keep your hips up in the air. That's going to activate your obliques. Now, Victoria, when you lower down, if you can't do a knee push-up, so lower back down, lower down to your knees. Then you're going to come up, and then see, raise off your knees. Yeah, so that's totally acceptable. You can lower down to your knees in order to do this. Okay, excellent. Now let's walk back up into the standing position. And that's going to set you guys up in the perfect position for your air squat, okay? So as you're here, you just want to lower down, thighs to parallel, hands up as a counterbalance, come back into standing, all the way up, all the way down.
Already start breaking a sweat now. That's a good thing.
Now if you notice key things here, their knees aren't going too far forward. The knees initiate the motion, but then they start to sit back and down. They don't round here at the back and collapse to keep themselves upright. If you start to collapse, you probably need to shorten your distance, shorten the depth of your squat. You want to push down into your heels. You want to activate all the muscles in the posterior chain, your hamstrings, your glutes. Good core activation, proper alignment of the spine. And there again, you're not trying to do as many reps as possible. You're just trying to do good repetitions, full range of motion. About 15 more seconds.
Breathing is very important too. Inhale by the nose, exhale by the mouth.
Okay, excellent work. Now, let's walk out here, okay? And as we get down here, we're gonna get in the quadruped position, meaning I want my hands underneath my shoulders and I want my knees underneath my hips. A wide enough base so I have stability, but not too wide. Then I'm gonna go opposite knee to elbow, extend, hold 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then back in. We're gonna stay on the same side. Now stay on the same side, everybody. So you're just gonna switch opposite knee to opposite elbow. 3, 2, 1. Keep going, in and out. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 2 more times. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. One more time. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now let's switch sides. So get your stance in place, drop your base, and go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 3 more. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 2 more. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1 more. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Excellent work. Now let's come around to a lying position, lying face up, okay? And now we're gonna do our straight up, okay? So we're pulling our toes back towards us, hands are overhead. We're gonna try to sit straight up and touch the ceiling here, okay? And then we're gonna lower right back down, right when the hands touch, right back up. We're gonna finish off with 1 minute of this, and that will complete our warm-up.
Remember that this is not a race, this is just a warm-up. The importance of this is the form. And it's not the repetition, it's not the number of repetition. It's to be able to break a little bit of sweat and ready to go be ready for a hard workout.
That's a very good point, George. And if you notice, George is sweating. Everybody here is sweating. It's a difficult warm-up, but yet everybody's able to talk. Everyone's able to still interact. They're not at that point where they're filled with lactic acid. We're not working out yet. Just getting everything loose and ready. About 10 more seconds. 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great job, everybody.
That completes our warm-up, and now we're ready to attack the real workout. Congratulations, everyone. Hi, everyone. I'm Georges Saint-Pierre, and welcome to my abdominal strength and core conditioning workout. Eric Owing, who's the designer of this workout, will guide us through this.
Okay, what we're gonna do here is it's a workout that pretty much uses all of what we consider the core. But remember, the core also consists of our shoulder stabilizers, our glute muscles. It has to do with pretty much everything throughout the body. I mean, we have stabilization throughout. So just don't think of only abdominals. Recognize that we're also using our back extensors, our obliques, transverse abdominis, our rectus abdominis, that six-pack muscle. We're using all of these muscles, and it's a round system. So the first round they're all difficult. You might find one a little bit easier than the other, but by the end, you should be completely fatigued. We're gonna try to hit every single muscle in your core and give you a great workout. So starting with round number 1, let's everybody go and grab a dumbbell, okay? We're just gonna grab one dumbbell. We're gonna come into stance here, okay? So let's go ahead and, I'm having my stopwatch here, so let's go ahead and bring it over to our left hand, all right? And we're gonna balance on our right foot. So we're gonna do one leg squats, okay, to start off. So left foot's up in the air. We're gonna squat with our right leg. Starting round 1, go. So squatting down, then standing up. You wanna try to stabilize each time you come up. And you'll notice your body wants to kick out when it does that. You have to use, there again, this is your core to stabilize your system. If that's a little bit difficult, you can tap down your toe each time and try to keep doing it and tap. And if necessary too, you can just put your foot back here, and this is a much easier variation, but totally acceptable. We're gonna try to do this for 30 seconds, then we're gonna switch sides. Okay guys, 3 more seconds. And standing up, let's switch hands and switch legs. So now on the right hand, on the left leg, one leg squats here, going down, coming up. If you need to do a toe tap, that's okay. And if you need to keep your foot on the ground, totally acceptable. 15 seconds. You guys are doing great. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, coming into the standing position, let's come forward here and grab our other weight. So you're gonna pick up both weights into your hand. You're gonna come to this position right here, okay, like a quarter curl, and we're gonna rotate doing an uppercut. Imagine you have an opponent that's about your same height and you're trying to hit them right in the chin. And notice how they cause a little dip when they come down and they sort of extend up.
Remember, the uppercut strength not only comes from the bicep, it comes from the hips.
And so what you notice throughout this core conditioning workouts, we're using the whole body, one functional unit. That's a theme that you're going to hear time and time and time again. Anything that's functional uses your whole body. So although our obliques are getting a lot of the work, we're also using our legs, our arms, our shoulders, our lats. Almost everything's involved in this motion. Okay, great job, guys. Almost there. And let's go 5, 4, 3,
it's burning.
2, 1.
Yeah.
Now set one dumbbell down, guys, okay? And now you're gonna bring one dumbbell down to the ground with you. Lying down in this position, we're gonna keep the dumbbell extended with both hands, and we're gonna sit up and lower down. Go straight up, try to come all the way up and lower down. If you find at home you're having a tough time doing this, you can just do an abdominal crunch, lifting your shoulders off the ground and coming down. And we're gonna do this for 1 minute, guys. You guys are doing excellent. Just keep going, up and down. Try to go straight up. You wanna touch the ceiling if you can. Try to breathe out when you hit that sticking point. When you hit that point where you feel like you've sort of hit the wall, try to breathe out and push up. Almost there. Got 5 more seconds, let's go. 3, 2, 1. Now you're gonna let the dumbbell down to the side and we're done with the dumbbell. Now you can do a slight bend in the knees. We're gonna put our palms up and we're gonna do a line rotation, trying to touch down. You don't wanna bend the knees too much unless you need to. And the variation, if you're having a tough time, is this. Notice how my legs are very bent and I'm going side to side. I wanna look opposite of the way my legs are going, but if I can, I wanna go my legs as straight as possible. It's a little bend in the knees, moving side to side. That's it, guys. We have about 20 more seconds. Going straight through.
Let's get through this. I know it's hard, it's painful, we're almost done.
10 more seconds now, guys.
Try to keep breathing.
Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now we're going into the bicycle. Now start slow because we have a minute here, okay? So it's going side to side. Trying to touch opposite knee to opposite elbow. Your abs should be on fire right now.
I confirm.
Opposite knee, opposite elbow. This is sort of similar like when you're doing when you're on the ground, you're doing an up kick. It's sort of the same type of mechanic. You have to use your whole body here, going side to side. Now, if you find that this is becoming too difficult, now guys, we have 25 seconds. Try to keep going, but if this is too difficult, you can do like a march, okay? Like this, where you touch your foot down and come up. But try to keep going, guys. Now we have 15 seconds. Let's pump it out, okay? 15 seconds. Let's go, George. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, guys. That's round 1. I'm sure your abs are feeling it. Feeling all right, George?
Yes.
Looks like he's lost for words. Okay, guys.
I lost my word because I'm in pain, but I'm doing well.
So that's the first one. So if you notice, we're using some motions that aren't typically considered core motions. We're doing like these squats, okay? We have with dumbbells in our hands, but all of this is necessary. And the main thing, if you notice, we're trying to keep the body aligned. We're not throwing the uppercut and letting our whole body sway. That's the whole idea of core conditioning. We need a strong core to keep us stabilized and allow us to move. So we're gonna kind of build upon that principle in round 2. So we're also gonna use a dumbbell here, just one dumbbell, okay? So let's everybody grab our dumbbell and get ready. We're gonna start with the right hand and we're gonna be in stance here, okay? So with the dumbbell right here in the middle, we're gonna do what's called a dumbbell swing, all right? So to start off round 2, it's gonna be a dumbbell swing, then a dumbbell wood chop, then we're gonna go down to the ground, all right? We're gonna go right and left. Let's get ready now and go. 1 minute of dumbbell swings. Going all the way up and down. And remember, it's more of your legs doing this. You're pushing your heels down into the ground and your arms more or less guiding the weight. Your core has to activate in order to stabilize your body from collapsing over.
It's not the shoulder that is working, everyone. The core. Keep the core tight. Push with the hips and the legs down to the floor.
You guys are doing great. About 25 more seconds. And notice how their bodies don't deviate. They stay right down the straight line. You want to imagine your chin's going through your belly button in a straight line, like someone were to pike you into the ground. That's how you would look. 10 more seconds now, okay? Let's go, guys. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now we're gonna grab here, okay, with our left hand, palm facing up with our right hand, and we're gonna do the wood chop. So we're gonna come here and up at a diagonal angle, okay? And notice how the body doesn't collapse. We're not folding over like this. We're maintaining our body in a good position. The legs do a little bit of bending. Going at that diagonal and down on the diagonal. If necessary, if you wanna lighten up a little bit, you can put a little bend in the arms, but it's best you can keep the arms straight. Keep the arms moving around the body. Rotating on the balls of your foot.
Big rotation.
Doing great, guys. About 20 more seconds. George, try to come a little bit more up at the angle here if you can.
Yes, sir.
Good. Nice, Lisa. Good, Ian. Okay, guys. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now switch hands over to the left-hand side, right back to our swing, okay? Going straight overhead. Remember, keep that chin in line with your belly button. Using your legs here, okay? Don't think the core is only abdominals. It's also the glutes, it's the legs, it's the hips. It's the muscles that stabilize the shoulders, the spine up top, everything.
Make sure you don't round your back on the way down. Keep your back arch and tight.
Not this, guys. There's no looking down here. So a way to make sure that doesn't happen is notice everybody's looking straight out. That's very important. Don't look down.
You come down with the legs.
And when you come up, push your heels into the ground. That activates all the muscles here in the back side of the body, okay? About 15 seconds. Let's pick it up now, guys. 10 seconds. 8, 7,
Finish strong.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, left palm facing up, cup with the right hand. We're gonna rotate and the wood chop on the other side. Going side to side. Try to imagine a half of a circle here, okay? At a diagonal, going in this direction, just like this. Remember, it's all of these muscles of the core, what we call the core, that stabilize the body, that keep the body, that give us posture so we just don't collapse over. If you find that you're collapsing over, if you find that you can't maintain this good alignment, set your weight down, take a little breather, come back, and start up again. You can even pause the video if you wanted to. That's totally fine. All right, guys, 15 seconds. Then we'll be down on the ground.
Last 15 seconds. Let's finish the round. We have a break.
We actually have one more exercise, George. Sorry, buddy. We're going down on the floor after this, okay? So we have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now everybody grab your other dumbbell, okay? Now we're going down here on the ground into the prone position. We're going to do the prone one-arm side press, okay? Like that. So we're going to start going to the right. Ready? And go. You're going to hold up here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lower down to the mat. Rotate and press up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And down. Open to the right. Now, one of the most important things here is that when you're holding up there, you can look up at the weight if you want, but I prefer you look straight out each time. And also, don't let the hips sag. We don't want this happening, okay? We want this. We want to lift. We want to activate the obliques. That whole frontal muscular system, those muscles on the side of the body, they're very important. Come on, guys, 10 more seconds. Let's finish strong. One more time on the other side. Open to the left. Hold 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Excellent work. Okay, that brings it into round 2.
Yes, sir.
How you feel, okay?
I'm ready to attack the round 3.
All right, good. Now, round 3 is going to be more on the ground. It's kind of more familiar exercises, okay? We're doing sit-ups, we're doing leg raises, we're doing V-ups, we're doing glute bridges, okay? So we're staying in the same theme of we're using our abdominal muscles, we're using our obliques, we're using everything, all right? It might seem a little bit easier, but you'll find that it's nice to give the body a little break because rounds 4 and 5 are very difficult. Round 3 is difficult, but it's not that bad. You guys are gonna get through it, okay?
We don't need the dumbbell for that.
We don't need any dumbbells. This is all body weight, okay? So we can move our dumbbells to the side. And if you guys want, we can just lie down here. And I'm gonna show you guys real quick. We still have 15 seconds, okay? So don't be in a rush. Just kind of check me out. When I do my sit-up, I'm not going slow. I'm trying to, like I'm throwing a ball in front of me. I'm kind of sitting up, and notice how I come all the way up there, right? So that's our first exercise. We have our sit-up, then our right glute bridge, and we'll keep going. I'll call them out to you guys, okay? Let's get ready, and beginning round 3, power sit-ups. Let's go. Try to explode up, use momentum. Drive your elbow down towards your hip, okay, George? So drive your elbow down to your hip. Yeah, there you go. Use that as momentum to bring you up.
Yes, sir.
Good, nice iron, nice Lisa. 5 more seconds. Now, from here, let's lie down here. Right leg bent, left leg straight. Glute bridge, okay? Lifting up with the hips. Now, you try to hold here if you can. We want to try to keep our thighs even, okay? Like parallel. Now, if you notice you start to fatigue, you can lower down. There's nothing wrong with that. I find that I tap into my hamstrings and glutes fire really hard. I tend to even cramp a little here. So if that's the case, you can come up and lower down. If you can maintain it for the full 30, that's awesome. You guys have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Excellent. Now, a slight bend in the knees, palms down. We're going to do our leg raises, okay? Not a big bend in the knees. You just want to tap your heel and go. But a slight bend. That'll leave some pressure on your spine. It makes it a little bit easier. Ten more seconds. We're going to go back through all this again. All right, guys, just keep going.
Remember to breathe, everyone. Breathing is the key.
Okay, now lying flat, left leg bent, left glute bridge, okay? Coming up. Keep the spine neutral. We're not jamming the lower back. So the abs are contracting a little bit, the glutes contracting, the hamstrings contracting. Like I said, if necessary to touch down and come back up, that's okay. Try to stay up if possible. Doing great, guys. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Arms overhead, slight bend in the knees. We bring our legs up and touch our toes. We have a V up now, okay? So bring the legs up. You guys notice George's doing a little bit harder variation, which is fine. He's actually going out and touching his toes, not when they're up here, but actually when they're out there. The further out your toes are, the more difficult it is. Yeah, if you come all the way up, but you can go back to doing it how you were, George. Either way is fine.
Yes, sir.
That's a tougher variation, and that's great. You can do it, get after it. Okay, guys, now right back down, okay? We're starting over again. Power sit-ups all the way up. Now, I'm going to make a little variation for you guys at home. If you're having a tough time with the sit-up now, we can switch to an abdominal crunch, meaning I'm just bringing my shoulders off the ground and coming up. I would like to see this, but if you can't get that, just raise the shoulders up and lower down. Almost there now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Left leg straight, right leg bent. We have our glute bridge, okay? Trying to lift up there, driving down into that heel, activating the glutes. Remember, guys, the glute muscles are the strongest muscles in the body. If they're not firing properly, your core's not functioning properly.
Can get hurt also.
Yeah, you lose your power, you lose everything. You guys doing great. Got 5 more seconds now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Leg raises, okay? Palms down, raising the legs right up here. Try to tap the heel and go. Tap the heel and go. $15 seconds.
Ooh la la, that's when it starts to really burn and get very uncomfortable.
Yeah, you guys are almost there. Almost
finished
now.
Through it. Let's go through it.
Come on, 5 seconds. Let's rep out, okay? Let's go. 3, 2, 1. Right leg straight, left leg bent, left glute bridge, okay? Let's go. Right up and lift. George, lower down that right thigh a little bit. There you go. Good. Try Try to push down to the left heel, okay? Really feeling the glutes, the hamstrings. Remember, keep those abs contracted.
If you hit a wall, let's just get through it. Everything is mental from here.
Yes, 5 seconds. And 3, 2, 1. V-ups, okay? Let's go. Get after it if you can. This is it. This is our last exercise for this round, okay? Come on, George. Let's go, buddy. Come on, Ian. Lisa, get after it. That's it. 15 seconds now. Let's go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Great job. So that's the end of round 3. And I'm sure your abs are probably killing you now. Probably everything else is starting to fatigue. Now this is where, what we call these rounds, George, coming up.
Championship round.
And there's a reason you're going to feel it, okay? Coming up, what we have going on here now is it's 2 rounds and there's 3 exercises, but they happen to be very difficult exercises, right, guys?
Absolutely.
I'm going to show you what's going on here, and then we're just going to get right into it. So don't let the static nature of this round fool you. This is very difficult, okay? So we're doing an opposites drill. Now, we're going to do the opposites where we come up here, okay, in this stance, but if necessary, you can do it from the kneeling stance. That's perfectly okay. We're going to do 5-second holds, okay? And as you're holding those, you can go a little bit longer at home if you feel like, hey, after 2 minutes it's a piece of cake, but I think 5-second holds each side are going to be plenty for everybody, okay?
Believe me, you're going to have enough.
Okay, let's go and get down in the position. And 2 minutes, guys, going to the opposite, starting with the left leg and the right hand. We're going to try to hold out there, okay? Touch and go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hands down and switching to the other side. And don't be in a rush to switch, guys. Remember, we have plenty of time. We don't have to be, flying through it. The whole idea is it's stability. And you'll see there are tendencies for their bodies to tilt. That's because their cores are fatigued. So we're trying to fight the lift up here a little bit, okay? Using the muscles back here, our rhomboids, our traps, the erector muscles. And if you start to fatigue too much, remember, guys, we can always lower down to the knees. We have to fight to keep it up there. Good. And then just keep switching. That's it. And you guys will find, too, it's very necessary as we switch in and out of these positions to come down to a wide base. If our base is too narrow, we'll collapse, okay? You guys are halfway there. If you feel necessary, you can do the variation of going down your knees. If you're feeling good, try to keep pushing through. Try to lift back up in here. Good. Yes, that makes you want to put your hand down. That's the body fatiguing, guys. Try to push, though, okay? We're almost there. 45 seconds. George, you need to do a wider base, buddy. That's why you're collapsing. A little bit wider base. If you need to go down to your knees, that's okay. Now, if you notice Lisa here, she's down on the knees, and that's totally fine, okay? She's getting the same effect. It's just a little bit less intensity. That's totally acceptable. See, George is having a tough time. Ian's having a tough time. So I'm sure you at home, you're probably having a tough time, too, and that's totally okay, all right? That's what we want. This shouldn't be easy. It shouldn't be easy for anybody. 15 seconds now, guys. Let's finish strong. And then we're going to go into our lateral plank, okay? Good. Stabilize. Almost there. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In that same prone position, okay? Let's go now, guys. In position, okay? Right here. Now we're going to open up to the right. Try to keep the hips up and hold. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right hand down. Open to the left. Hold. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Back to the right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. To the left. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Try to keep going, okay? Now, we're 40 seconds into this, and we're doing this for 2 minutes. So, switching every 5 seconds, for some of you guys might, at home, let's say you have really strong cores, right? You might find this too easy. You can hold it 10 seconds, 15 seconds. You can hold 1 minute one side and 1 minute on the other. And if you're doing that, if you're just holding one side, that's totally acceptable. And you're going to find right about now, you're halfway into it, you can switch sides, okay? But alternating is probably the option a lot of you are going to go for because this happens to be quite difficult. Now keep working, guys. You're doing a great job. And if you find at home that this is just too much for you, you can always do this variation, okay? We want to form this 90-degree angle here. We just want to lift up. This still works. These muscles here on the side are our obliques. This is working all the things in the frontal muscle system, okay? But what we're doing is just a less intense version. Just make sure at the halfway point, okay, we just switch and then we always go to the other side. You guys are doing great.
My body feels like I feel like my body want to collapse.
Yep, that's what you want to feel. Remember, guys, you want to get those hips up the whole time. The hips have a tendency when to dip here. We don't want them to dip. We want to keep them up. The oblique muscles, okay? We want to feel right underneath here. Almost there now, guys. Let's go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, excellent. Now let's lie down. We're going to do our straight up exercise, okay? So we're just going to sit straight up and down. Straight up and down. Work at your own pace, okay? And here again, if you're having a tough time with this, let's say your core is wiped out, you can't do anything, you can just do a basic abdominal crunch, either here or here with your hands, and up. But don't pull on the neck, okay? If you have to do a crunch, that's fine. You want to see this. But if you can't get that, try to get this.
Last one, everyone. Let's go push it through.
Okay, you guys are doing great. 20 seconds. Let's try to rep out now, okay?
That's when you separate the adult from the kids right here.
10 seconds.
I'm completely exhausted and I have time to make jokes. Can't believe it.
And time. Okay, now that brings an end to round 4. So we have one more round, okay, that we're going to come back for. So that one's difficult. This next one's going to be the most difficult, okay? So I can promise you guys you're going to be hurting after this.
I know. I'm having a hard time standing up right now. Just how bad it is. But I know that's what I need to get through what I want to accomplish in my career. So. And
George, we have a few seconds. Would you say that core strength is probably one of the most important aspects of being a good fighter? Like
it is, you know, because everything you do, you know, every time, let's say I try to hit someone and someone might hit me in the same time, or it's a question of stability. And when your stability, you know, is good, you know, you have less chances to get hurt, to get injured at the same time.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that actually.
And also, what is important, let's say I kick, I punch, the energy is transferred from the ball of my from the ball of my heel to my knuckle. If I have a good core strength, I have less waste of energy. My energy is not lost.
It connects the power, right?
Exactly. It makes the connection better.
It's like the bridge between the two.
Absolutely.
Alrighty, guys. So we went a little bit over there, but that's okay. I enjoyed listening to that. So our rest went a little bit longer. It's totally fine.
Thank
you.
Now
let's go and get ready here, okay? For our back bend, all right? So we're going to put our hands right up here by our head. We're going to get up on the balls of our feet, okay? And we're just going to drive up, pushing our palms down and trying to hollow out there in the back. So you want to push your hips up high into the sky, okay? And we're holding here for 30 seconds. You want to feel everything. This is working the whole posterior chain, okay? All the way. Every muscle on the backside of your body is working on this motion. This is quite difficult. After everything that you've done, you should have a tough time with this. And if you are having a tough time, it's totally acceptable to do just a glute bridge, okay? You're still going to get a good effect. Not the same effect, but a good one. Okay, guys, now let's lower down from our bridge. We're going to come right up here into the Navasana position, okay? Straight legs, try to keep the chest up. If you're having a tough time, we can bend the knees a little bit, okay? And 3, 2, 1, here we go now. This is going to be a tough one. We're going to do our sit-through, okay, as we come back into this position. George, you need to push on your hands, that's fine. Now we're going to lower down into our push-up, our Hindu push-up. We come back, and then we throw ourselves forward, sitting through, right back into the Navasana position, okay? Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with doing a variation. The variation, guys, is going to be this, okay? And we come around. We still hit our push-up. Then we just come right back down the hip and swing around. Bent knee is the easier version. Straight legs, the harder version. And if you notice, George has a ham boost. What that does, it gives you a little bit more lift. When you come back, then just put your hands down, push up, and then you can come back up here onto your fist and come through. Just remember, guys, if you do that variation, that you have to really stabilize here. You don't want to roll your wrist.
Yeah. That's probably the hardest exercise so far.
Yes, this one's tough.
That's why I put my fist on the ground to be able to pass my leg through.
Okay, you have to bend the knees there. That's totally okay. Great job, Lisa. Nice time. Try to bring those legs up a little bit higher. Yeah, about the eye. Through the eye line. Now work at your own pace here too at home, okay? If you find you go into a few repetitions, that's fine. Hips up, George. There you go. All the way through. 15 more seconds now. This is the toughest one, right? Toughest one for the last one, just like in a fight. Okay, guys, now in this position, prone position, okay? We have our mountain climbers. Try to keep the hips even with the shoulders, and we're just pumping through, okay? Let's go. Get after it. Hips a little bit lower, George. There you go. Pump those legs. I know fatigue's setting in now, guys. This is when you gotta push hard. 15 seconds. There you go. Try to pump those legs, George. 10 seconds. Nice work. Lisa, butt a little bit lower. Okay, guys. Great job. Now let's come back around, okay? Back into our back bend. Right here. Coming up. Get focused now. This is it. And up. The good news is on the transfer time there, guys, it cuts down the round a little bit, which is probably some good news. This is a very difficult exercise. Let's keep going there. We have 5 more seconds. Come on, George. Push it out, buddy. You're doing great. All right, lower down into Navasana, okay? So coming up, guys. No delay here now, okay? Let's go. I know you're tired. It's much easier for me. I'm just coaching you guys. For you guys, I know your muscles are burning and aching. But try to get there. If you have to bend the knees a little bit, that's okay. Good. Just take your time. Try to hold it there. Try to hold about 5 seconds in the Navasana position, okay? After you do that, try to sit up. And remember, when we go to our sit-through, look, I bring my knees up and in. I throw my head forward, and that's where I kick back. Lower down, come up. And then when I come back forward, right through. If I need to do the hand boost, that's fine. And if I need to do this variation of coming around on my hip and then doing the push-up, that's fine. And even if I need to do the variation of this push-up, that's fine. I can do it off the knees. Plenty of variations to make this an exercise everybody can do. Come on, George, almost there now. 20 more seconds here, okay? So try to get 2 more reps in. Then we're gonna finish off with the mountain climber, and then we're done with this workout, okay? Let's push through, guys, almost there. 10 more seconds. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Flip it around. Prone position, mountain climbers. Let's get after it now, guys. Come on, this is it. Finish strong. Pump those legs. Hips lower, George. Pump those knees high. All the way back, all the way up. That's it. Come on, man. Let's go.
Finish strong. Let's go.
Lisa, hips lower. Hips lower. Keep the hips low. Hips
Last
low.
round, like your life is depending on it.
Let's go. 10 seconds now. Push it out. That's it. Go. Let's go now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, everybody. Good job.
What a workout.
All right, so great job, everyone. That brings an end to round 5 and an end to the workout. And if you did all of this, I imagine you're probably pretty tired and you'll be ready for the cool down, okay? What do you think, though, George? What do you think about that workout?
Well, Eric, to tell you the truth, I like when my training is harder than my fight. If you train harder, my fight will be easier. It's the same thing for everyone in life. If you make your training harder in life, when you're gonna have to go through some obstacle, it would seem easier, you know? So that's how I like to roll. That's how we roll in here. Thank you, everyone. Great workout. Congratulations, you went through this. That was a good workout. Super, everyone. Great job. Just finished our workout. Now it's time for the cool down.
At the cool down, it's very important. we're not going to do a long cool down sequence, but the exercises, they're pretty much what they're doing is resetting your neuromuscular system so that you can go back into your daily life without having your muscles cramp and tighten up. We're really going to stress a lot of the muscles around our hips, okay? That's where we did a lot of work. Also our lats, our shoulders, our chest, pretty much the whole body, but we're going to do the most effective stretches that we can do in the shortest amount of time. This routine should take no more than 5 minutes, 5-6 minutes, okay? So let's go ahead and start down here on our left knee, right knee up, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to stretch the hip flexor. So I'm going to contract my abdominal muscles, trying to tuck my glutes right up here up underneath me, trying to tilt my pelvis under. Then I'm going to reach my left arm straight up in the air, fingertips pointing out towards the left. And I should feel the stretch coming right in here. Now we just want to lift our chin up while maintaining this contraction, all right? Looking straight ahead, contracting in the abdominals, glutes, stretches right up here in the front. If the arm goes forward, because you have tight lats, try to force it up there in the air, okay? We have about 10 more seconds, so just hang in there. Good.
Really feel the flexor,
the hip flexor
here.
Exactly. Okay, great. Now we're going to come up. We're going to turn, face the other way, lower down to the right knee. Take your time here now, okay? Let's go ahead and set everything in position. So we're going to contract the abdominals and the glutes and press straight up. And we're holding here for 30 seconds. Now 30 seconds is pretty much the minimum here. We just want to do at least 30 seconds to make sure we stretch out the body. But if you find you're enjoying this, don't be afraid to go back through this routine, do it 1 more time, 2 more times, as much as you want. These are great stretches. You really can't get enough of these.
There is a lot of benefit to gain from stretching.
Okay. Now let's come up here. Now, you can do a butterfly stretch, which Patrick is going to demonstrate, or you can just lower right down here into the side straddle. Everybody's flexibility is different, but if possible, we just want to try to split our legs out here, keep the posture upright, then we want to go forward. You see, the variation that Patrick's doing is working the same muscles. We're trying to stretch the adductor muscles right here in our inner thigh, okay? What I'm trying to do is I'm basically just pushing out, so is George, and we're trying to go forward if we can. We want to lie down flat here. Again, holding each stretch for 30 seconds.
I remember when I used to be a kid, I used to go all the way down. Now as I'm growing up, getting older, it's impossible to do the same thing because I didn't practice enough.
Okay, good. Now let's close up here. Legs straight ahead. Now what we want to do, remember, we just don't want to touch our toes. We want to pull our toes back towards us, contract our quadriceps, sit nice and upright, fingertips pointing down. We're pushing forward with the heel of our palm. If you find that to be too difficult by going forward like this and it's way too much, you can just do this. Just brace your hands right here by your hips, push up, try to keep your posture upright, still pulling your toes back, still contracting your quadriceps, and just trying to eventually lean forward. Once you can break 90 degrees going forward, you can probably take your hands off and push forward.
Really good for the posterior chain.
Exactly.
Hamstring, calf, lower back. This is what you need to do.
Okay, now let's turn to our right. I'm going to kick my left leg around here, bring my right leg in. Now if you notice, I stick my knee straight out from my hip and I form a 90-degree angle here, a 90-degree angle here. Now what I want to do is I want to try to go forward, putting my head all the way down to the ground. Everybody has a different flexibility level though, so the key thing is to try to lean towards your left on the stretch. If your left leg's back, lean towards your left, even if you have to stay upright. If you can lower down all the way, that's great. If you're right here, that's fine. This is for the extensors. This is for the muscles on the outside of the hip. A lot of jumping, kicking, all of those motions, we've really worked those muscles. Pretty much anything functional, you're using the extensors and the flexors. And now let's rotate around. So this is kind of cool. We're gonna lean to our right and swing to our left, and we come right back this way. Take your time getting into position though. So again, you want your left knee in front of your left hip. You want to try to create a 90-degree angle here, a 90-degree angle here. And same thing, try to lie forward. And if you have to, you don't have to push forward. Remember, you don't want to feel any type of tearing or a real strong pulling, just a slight pull in the muscles. And the muscles that we're trying to feel are the muscles right outside here, okay? Some people might feel it a little bit up in the back. You shouldn't be feeling it all over. Some people might feel a little bit of hamstring. For the most part, you want to feel it on the outer part of your left hip here. Trying to lie down.
Always aside that you're more flexible than the other. That is completely normal.
Okay, now we're just gonna kick back and through underneath. So we're in the quadruped position. So if you notice, we start out here with our knees right underneath our hips, right? And what we're gonna do, and our hands are underneath our shoulders, we're in a strong foundation. We're gonna extend our right hand forward, then our left hand forward. Now what I want you to do is drop your butt back while keeping your fingertips out there, trying to touch your butt to your heels and trying to get your armpits down to the ground. Once you do that, you're trying to inch your fingertips away as much as you can. And when we're doing this, we want to feel the stretch coming right down throughout the lats, okay? Some people find if they spread their knees out here, they also get a adductor stretch here as well. That's good. You just, get more flexibility in an area. I happen to have loose adductors, so I don't feel anything in the adductors, but I have tight lats. So this really stretches my lats every time.
You're really lucky. Me, I'm tight pretty much everywhere.
Okay, guys, great. Now we're going to come up here into this kneeling position. And what we want to do is we want to put our knees together, our heels together. We want to sit back here under our butt. We're going to interlace our fingers behind our back here. The most important thing is that I start to straighten my arms. That's more important than how high they get. Is that first they get straight, then I retract my shoulder blades, meaning I try to pull my shoulder blades together. Once I do that, I raise up as high as I can, and I want to feel stretched throughout my biceps, my deltoids, my pectoral muscles, all of that. And there's almost an infinite amount of stretches, but we don't want to spend all day stretching. You guys just did a hard workout, so we just want to hit some of the ones that really get the body back to where it was before you did your workout. Good, Patrick. George is very tight here, so this is a great stretch for him.
Absolutely.
Everybody else has good flexibility.
I should do this stretch more often.
Yeah.
Don't be scared that if you do something that you're not good at, that's mean you need to work on it. Like you can see this stretch, I'm pretty bad at it. That is something that I should put more time into.
Okay, buddy, that's time, and that concludes our cool down. So you have to remember that the cool down, although it seems like it's easy and it's almost like it's a part of the workout everyone wants to forget to do. We did all the hard stuff, we warm up because we want to get ready for the hard workout. Then we do the cool down, but sometimes we forget to do it. But remember, don't forget the cool down. It's going to allow you, it's going to help you to recover and to come back so you can be consistent and work out on a regular basis. It's very important that you do all parts of the workout and you try to be as consistent as possible because that's what leads to progress. If you just, come in on occasion and you do maybe a round or two and then, you skip a few days, you're not going to see the results that you're looking for. The results are going to come through consistency. That's the most important thing. And the consistency is given to you by allowing your body to recover properly, which is why we do the cool down.
And also the cool down is not only physical. For me, I use the cool down as a way to change my mind. I start from being the athlete, George St. Pierre, the fighter. When I work out, I'm the fighter. I'm a martial artist. But the cool down allowed me to make the transition by being the fighter to the everyday normal guy. So it's more than an actual workout. It's also the changing of your mind, putting your mind back into what it should be in everyday's life. Great job, everybody. Hi everyone, I'm Georges St. Pierre with Eric Owings, and we are here today to explain to you the RushFit foundation movements.
The foundation movements are, they're our foundation. So we don't want to just rush through this segment and think that these movements aren't necessary and you just hop into the workouts. It's actually very important that you spend time focusing on these basic foundation movements and then go into the workouts. If you've mastered the movements in this segment, you're going to find that you're going to be able to perform everything with ease. Well, not with ease, but with competency. And by doing that, you're going to be able to progress and, reach your fitness goals, whatever they may be. So it's very important you take time, you watch, you learn, and then you spend time mastering them. You don't need to use a lot of weight. Some of the movements are just body weight. Some require dumbbells. But it's going to be very important that you take your time and that you make sure that your body's in proper alignment. Pay attention throughout the concept of core activation, the concept of good posture, of doing everything with correct form, minimal amount of weight, and then add weight as you feel necessary. If you do these movements correctly, you're going to find understanding the future DVDs are going to be a piece of cake.
We all train for different purposes, but make sure we get those movements right.
Okay, everybody, let's talk a little bit about the squat. The squat's one of the most fundamental motions that you're ever going to do in exercise and fighting and anything. I think almost everything that you do almost always has a component of changing your level up and down. So whether the person says level change, whether they say shoot, sprawl, whatever it is you're doing, almost always there's a little bit of a bend here. So we want to develop this to the fullest capability. That's why we include squatting. You see a lot of squatting in this program. And in the beginning, you might notice that your range of motion is not so good, but eventually it will increase as long as you take your time and kind of work within your own limits. And eventually you want to get to what is considered full range of motion, which is a parallel thigh to the ground and an upright posture. So if you notice when George comes down, George, if you can, squat down and hold the squat here. If you notice, George is pretty much settling into his heels. His knees aren't far past his toes, and he's sitting back like he's sitting down into a chair. Then he comes back up in the standing. Yes, and go and do a few reps, George. Let everybody see you doing the reps. And hold again at the bottom, George, if you can. Come back down. Good. Yeah, right there. And like I said, if you notice parallel thigh, and then he starts to come up. Now, if necessary, the modification, if you're having a tough time, right, you can stop, George, is going to be just to go a little bit more shallow. But what we don't want to see is we don't want to see the knees buckling in. This is a definite no-no. We want the knees coming out, okay? If necessary, you can widen your stance a little bit. So you don't want a narrow stance. Remember, shoulder width, toes are slightly to the outside, just a little bit, okay? We're not going really wide, just a little bit to the outside. And what you want to do is your arms come up as you sit back. So you have to kind of sit back. Imagine you're sitting into a chair. And if you're having a tough time, you can always put a chair behind you. But if you find that even you lose control, like you get here and you almost fall over, you fall back, that's totally okay. What you want to do there is you want to go a little bit more shallow, then stand. And eventually work your depth down till you get the parallel. So go ahead and do a couple more, George. Let everybody see the full range of motion. Yep, then up, one more. And this is a motion that, okay, George, you can relax. For George, this is extremely important for any fighter, for any athlete, for anybody almost, is the ability to go up and down with control of the core, with complete stabilization here in the body, being able to maintain this here all the way down to there. This is an essential motion for life, no matter whether you're fighting or just going about your daily routine.
Absolutely. It's a movement pattern that happens every minute of every fight.
And that's the squat. The lunge is one of the most essential motions, probably next to the squat. It's a little bit more complex, so there's a few more things we have to pay attention to. The squat, for most people, is a basic movement, whereas lunging, we're actually going forward, to the side, backwards, or crossing behind. There's basically 4 ways that we're going to do this. So George, if you can go in all 4 directions, let's go 2 to the front, then 2 side to side.
The knee doesn't touch the ground when you go in the front.
And backwards.
You see, my knee doesn't touch the ground.
And the cross back variation, where we go side to side. So we try 4 different variations, even though George has a good range of motion here. He's doing everything the proper way. And George, if I can just have you stop for a second and go out there into the lunge and lower down. And you can lower down. George is going to let his knee touch here just to relax his leg muscles, but normally he's not going to let his leg touch. If anything, we're just going to kiss the ground. It's just going to touch and come back up. Now, if you notice here, George, although he comes out, he comes forward, he's not driving his knee forward. He actually steps, he takes a natural step forward, and then he just sinks his weight down into his heel. That's very important. What we don't want happening is this, and then I keep going forward, and I feel a stretch here, like this is like a tearing sensation. Also, this puts a lot of stress on the knee. So I want to keep my foot on the ground, and then as I take this natural step forward, I go here, then I just lower down, okay? We want to maintain good posture. Sometimes we include a touchdown. That's totally acceptable. And the same thing, now if we come up, George, if we go to the side, notice how the knee doesn't go forward, you actually sit back. You sit back under your heels, and the arms act as a counterbalance here. Or you can touch down. If we move backwards, that's good. And if we go backwards here, same thing. We go back, and then I sink down into the heel of the front leg. And if I go to the transverse of the cross back lunge, I come here. My front leg, I sink down into the heel and up. Now, each one of these lunges, we go in different directions because, well, our body can move in different directions. We don't develop strength in just one range of motion. We want a variety of movement patterns that give us more balance throughout our body. And would you say this is pretty similar to what you do when you take someone down, when you shoot him for a takedown?
Absolutely. Not only, I would say, the takedown, the changing level, the footwork, even the most basic stuff that we do in mixed martial art, we use lunges in a certain way.
And you'll find at home, say if you have a hard time going all the way out into this position, you feel that you lose your balance and you're having a tough time, the best thing to do here is go a little bit wider with your stance, take a natural step forward, and then you're just going to do what we call a split squat. So it's a variation. We're not lunging, we actually stay in stance. So you can stay in stance and just touch down, or just stay up here and you come up. And if you find you have to restrict your range of motion a bit, that's totally acceptable. But what you don't want to do is come out here where you feel like you're falling and your knees are shaking and you're losing balance. So same thing with a lateral lunge. If I had to just stay here, I can do a stationary movement and restrict the range of motion a bit. But you want to try to get to where you do the full range of motion and include the movement patterns. But if you have to, you can stay stationary, do say 5 reps, 10 reps, how many ever is necessary from a stationary position. Then you switch, come into a stationary position, and it'll look just like this. That's the modification if you're having a tough time, and that's the lunge. The push-up is one of the most basic upper body exercises we can do. It requires no equipment, and you can almost do it in any space. If you just have a tiny little space in your living room, your bedroom, wherever, you can always do some push-ups. Now, the key to a push-up is maintaining good alignment of the body. So I should almost be able to transfer the same exact stance that you see here standing right to the ground. We don't want to be caved in here but too high. We want to think about almost a line that forms, if you do it straight through the body, your ear, shoulder, hip, knee, ankle, going straight through. Once the deviations start to occur, that shows that your core stability is now, it's malfunctioning, and you're going to have to make a modification. We'll show some modifications, but let's first take a look at how it's performed correctly. George, let's go ahead and do a couple push-ups here, okay? Just a normal standard push-up. Notice how George has a great alignment here with his body. It's straight through, and that's because George has a strong core. By having a strong core, he's able to maintain that position. Now, George can do a variety of push-ups here. Let's do some knuckle push-ups, George. So by changing his grip, he changes the angle, and the angle changes which muscles are working, and he can work different parts of his body just by changing the way that his hands are placed. He can go narrow or wide with his grips. He can go up on his knuckles. That requires more wrist stability. Push-ups have a lot of variations. They have a lot of stuff you can do. Let's show a plyo push-up here. Just show, this is an explosive push-up. So it's the same movement, but just performed differently. Okay, great. And go ahead and relax. So that's basically a perfect push-up. Now, if you're having a tough time and you find, like I said, is I come into this position and I get up here and I start doing this, or my head starts coming down, I start breaking my form. The best modification you can make when that starts happening, so maybe, let's say I start off strong. I do 5 push-ups, but then my range of motion starts to get shorter, my neck starts to lead down, my hips start to sag. I want to try to maintain this alignment, and then it's lowered down to my knees. From here, I continue on how I was doing, just off my knees. That makes the resistance much less, and I'm able to do it. If I find that even this, I start to sag and I start to break down, then what I want to do is I just want to lower back, take a break, come back into alignment. So notice that means my shoulders are over my hands, my head's in place, and it's my arms that are bending. I'm stabilizing my body with my core.
Eric, is that fair to say that the push-up also, it works the core and all the body in the same time? It's not only the arm.
Yeah, well, you know, George, it's funny that you asked that, because the thing about the push-up is that it's predominantly a core exercise. And remember, guys, core is beyond just abdominals. It's pretty much everything that's stabilizing with the body. So just maintaining the push-up position is actually quite difficult. If someone just tries to maintain this in good alignment for 1 minute, they'll start to fatigue. And what we're doing is we're adding on the arm exercise to it. So just don't think of a push-up as only a pushing exercise. Think about it as a total body exercise. And that's kind of like the whole thing that we're getting at in functional training. Because for fighting, you have to be able to use your whole body at one time. And in life, pretty much, you have to. Yeah, that's a variation where George is a scapular retraction, and now he's working the backside of his body. All right, great job. And that's the push-up. The sit-up is a very basic motion that I think everybody's probably done once or twice in their life. Whether we even realize, sometimes we just sit up out of our bed. So spinal flexion is really what we can call this, okay? And what we're doing when we do a sit-up is we're trying to use the abdominals, actually use our neck flexors here too. So pretty much think of the spine as not just here in this little area, right? It's the whole entire spinal column. And it's the idea of bringing everything forward. So that idea of flexion is a very essential movement pattern. One of the easiest ways to train this is by doing a sit-up. And you'll see this in the warm-up. So George, let's go and come up, where George starts to raise up in the air. Good. Now, as you lie down, let's bend the knees and do a traditional sit-up. Now, where you take your elbows down towards your hips and you sit all the way up. Just widen your feet out a little bit if you can, George. Good. And these are all good variations. Now, you'll find like throughout a fight, you probably sit up quite a bit, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Like, where you have to get up off the ground if you get taken down? Absolutely.
On the ground, and also standing up, I think just a basic punch, sometimes you need to crunch down. And
yeah, kind of cover.
That's when the abdominal comes into play.
And remember, anything like this is spinal flexion, and this is going to require the abdominal muscles to contract. Now, we can overload this pattern by putting a weight in your hands. Just using your body weight sometimes is enough. So there's a lot of variety in how to do this. And you'll find that sometimes for some people a full sit-up can be sort of like jarring on the spine. Sometimes you have difficulty with that. If that happens to be the case, there's nothing wrong with just doing an abdominal crunch variation. The key thing is we don't want to yank the head forward. We just want to kind of put our fingers here, or we can even cross over here. And when we do this, we just bring the shoulder blades off the ground and lower it out. So this is a modification for people who might find the full sit-up to be difficult. You can always do a partial motion. Then eventually, as you get stronger, work yourself into a full range of motion. And that's the sit-up. Now we're going to talk about back extension. Back extension is something that it's very important, actually, in everything in life. All these exercises that we're doing are extremely important, but this is one of those things that if we don't have our extensor, basically the erector muscle of the spine, we're going to collapse. We're going to develop a posture like this. And posture like this is not really good for anything in life, but especially not for fighting, right? I mean, fighting is one of those things you have to have good posture.
Exactly. Plus, it's going to make you have injuries. You know, it's not going to keep your body healthy. It's very important to have a good posture, keep your body healthy, and stay injury-free.
Now, George is just going to show a variation of the back extension. And so you can lower down here, George. You can do the more difficult one, and that's this. That's the opposite. But you can also just do it off the knees, too. So if George goes down, if you notice when he gets up here, so yeah, he's got to activate all this. Now, this has a little bit more to do than just back extension. That has glute activation. Now, here, he's pretty much extending throughout the spine. He's working all these muscles. Now, the glutes work here, too. And this is one of the kneeling opposites, or just the prone position opposites, is an advanced form of back extension with also glute activation and various other things. Now, when he goes down, this is pretty much showing, I think, back extension in a more pure form, although we are also encompassing pretty much everything here on the posterior chain. And just, George, if you can tilt your chin in, what's happening is he's pretty much contracting from head to toe all the way down his spine, all the way throughout. And yeah, you can go ahead and relax down, George. So this is one of those movements that, although it appears simple, it's actually quite difficult. I mean, you'll find that like if you put this into the circuits and you're just doing this exercise on a daily basis, whenever you do that isometric contraction, what happens is you just, basically lactic acid starts building up throughout the body. But as you do it more and more, you start to develop a tolerance to it, and you get stronger, and you actually develop better posture where you can stay upright or perform a takedown more efficiently or a guard pass more efficiently. Now we're going to show a modification here. If you're having a tough time doing the full extension with all 4 limbs off the ground, what George is going to do is going to put his head down on the ground, and he's going to go 1, then over to his other hand, 2, to his leg now, 3, and then to his other one, 4. You can try to hold each one for about 5 seconds, and eventually you can try to do the line opposites. So George, let's go opposite leg, opposite arm, and you can go side to side like that. Now if you've done the opposites and you've been able to complete, going side to side, now let's try doing everything together. You do all 4 limbs off the ground, so you raise up, George, try to raise the legs off, and what George is trying to do is get everything just pretty much keeping just his abdominals and his thighs on the ground and take everything else off the ground, which causes everything on his back to have to contract, and that's going to give him good back extension and good posture, and that's the back extension. Now let's talk about rotation. You'll find in this program there's a lot of movements that require us to rotate, moving our shoulders around our spine. This is a consistent theme you'll find pretty much throughout fighting too, right? I mean, to throw a punch, to throw a kick, to almost do any type of judo-style takedown, there's almost always a rotational component.
Absolutely, it's a natural movement pattern of the body. You can see this in every movement, every technique in mixed martial art.
And you'll find that as we're doing these rotation movements, sometimes we take a pose where we're just moving our shoulders around our spine, but our spine pretty much stays looking straight ahead. Sometimes we'll follow. So you notice if George is doing now, he's following. Now, George, let's shorten up your range of motion, but let's stay looking straight ahead with no movement from the head whatsoever, just your shoulders moving around. And these are both acceptable forms of rotation. Now, you also notice if George does what we call a prone rotation, okay, from down in the push-up position, just opening and closing. George, you don't have to even pause that long, just pause for about a second. So George is going to rotate. There again, he's rotating around and down, go to the other side, going side to side. And there's also another form of rotation here that you'll see. Actually, there's various forms. You'll notice it's a consistent theme, and you just want to be aware of this, not to overdo it. Don't try to over-rotate. Let your natural range of motion sort of dictate that. Always start with going with a restricted range of motion and gradually building up to where you feel like you're reaching those outer limits, then that's where you want to stop. You don't want to go too far. And George, let's just show the Kimura sit-up. This is another sit-up that you'll see throughout, and notice how he's rotating as he comes up. So here again, we're almost combining the movement patterns, spinal flexion with rotation, and that's one of the things you're going to notice throughout the program is that there's a lot of rotation going on. One of the key things, though, is to make sure that you have your core activated, meaning that your muscles are starting loose and your spine's not really loose. You want to make sure everything's strong and stabilized. That way, as you're rotating, you're not going to hurt yourself. That's very important. That's also something we're going to talk about is the concept of core activation. But for right now, that covers rotation. Now let's talk a little bit about core activation. Core activation is one of those things that it's actually very complex if you want to talk about it, because you can pretty much, we can get into debate on what part of the core are we talking about. We're talking about the core of the knee and the intrinsic stabilizers inside the knee or whatever little joint. But a consistent thing we're talking about, basically the stabilization of our midsection of the spine. That's what you're going to hear. You're going to hear core activation throughout, and you're going to, pretty much every exercise that we do, it has to be done first. We have to activate the core before we squat. We don't want to have a loose core because then everything tumbles in. So we always have to keep the body active. One of the best examples, the simplest way I can explain this, and for George and for everybody at home, if I were to be in front of George, I'm going to punch him as hard as I can in the stomach. So say if you're in a square stance, George, and you were to activate your core, you were to brace for this punch to the stomach, what would you do? Exactly. Now you saw what happened there. We'll go ahead and do it again. He braces. Now everything here tightens up. That's the transverse abdominis muscle. It's kind of like this little girdle that's tightening everything up. It's activating your diaphragm, your rectus abdominis, all of these muscles around here. Everything's doing its job to keep the spine in place. So, well, in this case, so you can brace for a punch, but also if you were to lift a heavy weight, you'll find almost any movement that you do, that's going to become what you do before you do your movement. Whether you're going to take off running, whether you're going to throw a punch, whether you're going to throw a kick, whether you're going to do a power clean or a squat or anything, you always have to have core activation. Let's just show one more example here, George. Let's go and go down into the plank position. And this is one of those ones that you can kind of almost test if your core is activating just by holding this. Now, George's core is activated, and we know this because of the alignment. We have ear, shoulder, hip. Everything here is nice and tight, and he's contracted throughout. One thing if you'll notice here is that his body's not moving in and out. Although George is breathing, he's definitely, oxygen's going in and out of his body. He's not losing the core activation. This is very essential. You don't want to start breathing, let your body collapse as you're breathing. You want to keep everything in place. And if you can, you try to breathe into the back of the lungs as you're there. Try not to just breathe real shallow. Try to breathe natural, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult because this is all contracting. This is restricting the movement of your ribs a little bit, but you still be able to breathe into the back. That's the whole idea. So breathe naturally, yet keep the muscles activated. It's a very important concept that not only for our program, but just for life in general. If you're ever going to pick anything up, if you're ever going to do any activity, this can help you. And that covers the basics of core activation. Okay, now let's talk about the burpee. The burpee is, in my opinion, it's one of those motions that probably best simulates the energetics of a fight. If you do it with an explosive nature and you really go after it, you can get a very intense workout in less than a minute if you just do as many as you can. It's one of those things that, because there's so much muscle being used and there's so much movement involved, that this really accelerates the metabolism and it works pretty much every muscle throughout the body. Let's go ahead and have you show a few burpees, George, just in full speed. Let's do 3 of them. So if you notice, we have almost all those components we talked about. We have, okay, you can go and relax. We have squatting. We have sort of almost like a lunge. We have a plank position. We have core activation. We have jumping. We have a push-up. We have flexion of the spine. We have so much movement going on here. And for some people, well, actually for almost everybody, this is a difficult exercise.
Absolutely. It's raise the heart rate.
Yeah. And it's also pretty similar to a sprawl motion too, right? Like if someone were to try to take you down, it's almost like you're sprawling.
You can say it's like a sprawl and also could be following by a takedown. The same push that you find during a takedown, it's the same push that you use when you come up.
Yeah, so there's a lot of functional transfer, if you want to use that word. It's actually that's actually a great way to describe it. There's functional transfer from this movement into what George does or what most athletes do. Now, for some people, the most difficult part might be the squat thrust. So let's just show the squat thrust component, George, where you just jump back and jump up, okay? Now, if you have a hard time doing that, because see, George he's a strong person and he has good coordination. For some people, that might be a little bit too much in the beginning, and the jump at the top. So what I'm going to suggest as a modification, if you're having a tough time doing the squat thrust, because you'll see squat thrusts and burpees throughout the program, is I suggest you do this and sprawling. So this is a great substitution for squat thrust, burpees, and sprawling motions throughout. What I'd like to see you do is this. You just basically come down and try to get your hands onto the ground. You're going to step back with one foot, back with the other, back with the foot, back here, and then stand. That's a fine substitution. You'll find when you get used to it, you can build up speed, and then eventually you can get into the full motion where you hop back and you hop up. And that covers the burpee and the squat thrust. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about addressing the dumbbells. And what I mean by that is how we pick the dumbbell up off the ground. My recommendation for almost anybody, I even do this myself when I train, is to set my dumbbells on something about anywhere between knee to waist height. I prefer a chair or a table, or if I'm at a gym, I prefer like the rack itself. And the reason being is we don't want to come up to our dumbbells and try to pick them up like this. Now, throughout the program, you might notice, because we're doing real workouts, you might notice that happens. You might notice people set their dumbbells down. They are bending the spine. So you can be like, oh, that's a contradiction. But what happens when you have a strong core, you can get away with it. If I do this here right now, like I'm technically in bad posture, and look, I just did it the wrong way. But that's because I have a strong core. I'm able to do that. But if I'm deconditioned and I do this type of motion, I could hurt myself. And that's very important to realize that just because you can get away with it, you should try not to. You should always make it your objective to do everything the correct way. So as you get stronger and stronger, you can make a mistake, but to do it the correct way, this is what George is going to show now. This is how we want you to come down if you're going to pick your dumbbells up off the ground. Notice how his back's in a strong, flat, neutral position, and that means his core is activated. Now, if you go up and you set your dumbbells back down, George, same thing. Notice he widens out his stance a little bit, then he drops them down, strong position, and that's how you address the dumbbell. Okay, the dumbbell squat is very similar to the squat that we learned for just basic body weight squatting. It's the same mechanics. The only difference is that now we have resistance added. So George is going to come up, address the dumbbells. He's going to step back, and he's going to set his stance at shoulder width apart. The toes can point slightly outward, but for the most part, his legs are straight ahead. And with his dumbbells by his side, he's just going to squat down and then come back up. And notice how the dumbbells move a little bit out the way. Good posture. Try to get his thighs down the parallel each time. Good. Now, George, if you can, let's clean them up. And now this is what we call a front squat. So it's pretty much the same thing. Notice how he lowers down and drives up. The weights stay high, pushing the elbows forward. And notice how he gets down deep. It's the same thing. So there's two basic variations that we're looking at doing. And that's our basic squat with our dumbbells to the side. And then with our dumbbells up, the front squat variation. These both, basically what we're doing is the same type of squatting motion. Like I said, the same mechanics. We're sitting back into that chair. The knees aren't going too far forward. We're activating all the leg muscles, the core muscles, everything throughout. And this makes your legs very strong.
Keep everything straight.
And that's the dumbbell squat. Okay, the dumbbell lunge is essentially the same lunge that we learned before, except now we're just adding resistance. The most common way that we're going to add resistance is just by holding the weights down by our side. Starting off, George, feet together. And let's go and do a lunge. Let's do all four directions, okay? Let's go forward, okay? Then we'll go with our lateral lunge to the side. Excellent. Let's go backwards now. And we'll do our cross back lunge. Okay, so those are four directions. And you'll notice that each one's a little bit different, but yet it's pretty much similar. Let's go back out to the forward lunge again one more time, though. So notice when George comes down here, when he lunges, now George lowered his knee down because that's for what I'm showing you guys. You know, if he holds that there, it actually becomes excruciatingly painful. And so he's taking a little break down here, but normally his knee would not be on the ground. He's just going to be here for a momentary pause, and he comes back. The key thing here, though, is actually how he's putting the weight onto his foot. His weight's not going onto the ball of his foot and his toes, and his knee's not projecting forward. He just steps forward and he lowers down into the heel.
90 degree.
Yeah, exactly. Get that thigh to parallel, then come right back up in the standing, pushing off the ball of the foot, and there it is. He's back into his position. So forward and backwards, and you can go multi-directions. Now, do you like doing multi-direction lunges, George?
I like it because when I'm fighting, in every day of life, you know, you're going multi-direction. So it's important that your training reflect what you will perform.
And that's the dumbbell lunge. The dumbbell standing press is one of the best strength building exercises that we have for the upper body. What happens here is we want to maintain, first of all, let's go and bring the dumbbells up, George, to the rack position. This is what we call the rack position, okay? Meaning that we have them racked up top here. Now, very important here is that we don't want George extending at the spine. We actually want core activation. We're that key theme. We want to keep everything here in place. And then, George, let's just press them straight up with your palms facing. That's a basic standing press. Now let's do another repetition with a rotation. That's also an acceptable form of pressing. Yeah, rotating at the bottom. And now let's do a push press, which is an explosive form. Good. And let's do that one more time, George. So standing press, no, a basic standing press, just straight up, good. Then rotating, and then the push press, where if you notice, he looks down as he presses up. The reason why he does it, you can even do that in your regular presses too, if you just want to develop this habit. What George is doing when he does this, he's clearing out more space back here in between his scapula, so he can actually get better extension on his arms when he does that. So when I look down, I say, but I don't want to stay looking down. As I lower it down, I'll look up. Other thing is, you notice George, he's not doing this. He's not sticking his chest out to try to get his chest involved in all these other muscles to use more weight. He's maintaining good core alignment, which actually makes him a better athlete. It keeps him safe, and it gives him real functional strength. It's not an artificial form of strength that we're doing here. He's actually keeping his body in the alignment that it should be in. So, and then he's using the weight that actually suits his body. So remember, don't try to use a bunch of weight here. Don't let your ego get involved into the lift. Try to use just what you can use with good form.
Quality over quantity.
Yes, that's one of the most important concepts. You're going to quality over quantity. And if you get used to doing that, you'll find that eventually the weight will increase. And so with this one, let it go gradually. A lot of times we get our egos attached to the pressing motions. Like people ask, how much do you bench press? And would you say that that's really even relevant in a fight, how much you bench press?
Doesn't make any difference.
Okay, so One more thing here, just on the press before we wrap it up here, is that when you do the push press, remember that's an advanced variation. When we do this requires a little bit more explosion. We're using the legs, we're popping the hips. If any motion, if you find that it's a little bit too ballistic, that maybe you don't feel comfortable doing it, it's totally fine to substitute just a standard press. And that's where we just come up and down, or even looking straight ahead. Very basic. So you don't have to do the push press unless you feel you're ready for that. And that's the basics of the dumbbell standing press. Okay, now let's talk about the dumbbell row. I consider the dumbbell row to be sort of like the yin to the yang or the yang to the yin to a standing press. It's sort of like the balancing out motion. And it's a very important motion because we don't really get any type of pulling motion with our body weight exercises. So we want to make sure that we include a pulling motion with the dumbbells. The important thing here is if you notice when George comes down, let's go and do a couple stationary rows there, George. Good. 1, let's do 3 here. 2, 1 more, and 3. And you can come back in the standing. Now, if you notice when George, when he does his row, he sits back with his hips this way, onto his heels with his chest over his spine. He does not round. He keeps the back in a nice, strong, neutral position there. Again, remember the concept, core activation. It stays throughout, okay? So the core has to activate. I sit back here, and then I'm in good position. Now, this is a very important motion, so we have to remember, we try to pull our elbows back, and we're pulling with our elbows. That activates our lats, our rhomboids, our traps, all of these muscles that make our backs very strong and allow us to do this motion. We have to use those. The biceps, the forearms, everything here, it is activating as well. But remember, we want to pull with the elbow. Now, George, let's show a rotational row. This is where he's actually going side to side. And let's go and get, some spinal rotation going on there. Good. Now, if you notice, it's the same motion. Now he's just alternating arms, but still the same strong back position. The core is activated, and he's moving the elbows around the spine. All right, George, now let's go ahead and go down into the prone position. Oh, no, okay, actually, let me grab one of these and just do a 1 arm, 1 leg row. Yeah, let's check that out. Now he's doing the same type of row, but now he's on, it's much more, this is an advanced variation. Now, if George wanted to modify this because, say, balance were an issue, let's say you're having a hard time doing that, George, just put your foot down. There again, try to stay bent over, good, and row. And you could even brace your hand on your knee there too, George. Yeah, that gives him more stability. Okay, so that's an easier modification when you see a 1 arm, 1-legged row. And let's do 1 prone row, George. So put the dumbbells down here in front of you and out into this position. And we're just going to go side to side a few times. So now he's in that push-up type position. And notice he's pulling, he sets the weight down, he's going side to side.
My core is working as well.
Yeah, this is activating his core to the extreme. Now what we want here too, now George, let's lower down to the knees. Let's say George fatigues and he wants to continue on rowing, but his core it's gotten tired. This is a great modification to make. If you find that that type of prone row becomes too difficult, you can always lower down to your knees. That makes it a little bit easier on the core, and you can still get that rowing motion in, which is a very important motion. And that's the basics of the dumbbell row. Now let's talk about the exercise upright rowing or high pulling, or I should say, because they're not exactly the same, but it's a similar movement pattern. Let's first look at the upright row. You'll notice this is a movement throughout. Now the upright row is basically George in just a natural stacked position, stacked meaning ear, shoulder, hip, knee, ankle. Nice natural posture. He's using the trapezius muscles, the deltoids, the biceps, everything here, and he's pulling upward. Notice how the elbow comes up higher than the wrist, and he's just activating all of that, pulling up. Now that's our basic movement pattern. Now George is going to do a little bit more advanced. George, you can actually just use 1. You don't have to even use 2 here. So now let's do a high pull. Now the difference with the high pull is this is leading into the Olympic lifts. He's using his legs. He's popping his hip, driving with his legs, and then using that to help pop it up. And it's more of a leg exercise, and the arms are just activating towards the top. They're both great variations. Now, if you notice that the high pull is a little bit complicated, you can always substitute back with our basic that you saw there, which is just the upright row, whether it's with 1 dumbbell or with 2 dumbbells. And then if you feel comfortable, we use our legs. And if you notice, hey, George, can we do it just a couple more times? I just want to show one more thing here when you do it. And if you notice, when George does this motion, look at his spine. His spine is nice and strong. His core is activated throughout, and that allows him to connect his legs to his arms.
The actual work is more with the leg than the shoulder, actually.
Yes. That's kind of like with a punch or a kick, too, right? I mean, like almost everything that you do, it's more from the hips and the
Our legs is the strongest part of our body. Legs are much more stronger than the arms, so that's why we use the leg for everything that we do.
And that covers the basics of the dumbbell high pull or the upright row. Now we're going to talk about the dumbbell clean or the dumbbell power clean. Olympic lifting, in my opinion, is what we're all kind of building up to with, with athletic training and weightlifting. I think that's the main value of weight training for a fighter. Would you agree?
I agree, and that's one of the reasons why I implement Olympic lifting movement pattern in my training, because the Olympic lifters are the most explosive athlete in the world, and in my sport, I need explosiveness.
So George a lot of times trains with a barbell, but a dumbbell is a fine substitution. Never feel, like just because you don't have a big heavy weight, we can't get the same effect. Because when you think about what we're doing, whether we're using a barbell, a kettlebell, a dumbbell, whatever it is, we're essentially doing a jumping motion. This concept of triple extension of the ankle, knee, and hip joint like this. That's what people are doing with it. So George, let's go ahead and jump up. Yeah, let's show that a few more times. So that's what it looks like without, and really jump off the ground and really exaggerate it. And so if you notice, what an Olympic lift is essentially we're projecting the weights upward, right, with this shrug, with this type of movement pattern, kind of like we're jumping up off the ground. But because we have heavy weights, we don't really jump. A lot of times we stay planted on the ground. Then as I land, I pop my elbows forward, and that gets me underneath the weight. So I'm actually putting myself underneath the weight, then I stand.
We transfer all our energy in the tools that we have, either if it's a barbell or a dumbbell. In Olympic lifting, they use a barbell, but we're going to transfer all the energy of the movement in our dumbbell.
Yes. So let's go and show it a few times with the dumbbell. Let's take a look at the basics here. So the first thing is this, there again, we get ourselves in a nice strong position. You notice George will fold over, but keeping the back in a strong position. Then he'll extend up, and he does the catch. So there's a couple parts. So George, let's just go and stress just the, yeah, good. And if you notice, let's do it one more time. Excellent. And what he's doing there, you can go and set the dumbbells down, George. He's extending here, okay? And remember, as he's extending, it looks like he's just throwing the weights up, but really what's happening is the weights are projecting upward, and as he dips, he punches his elbow forward, and he maintains good position here, and he squats down, he lands on his heels, then he stands, then he lowers. And if you notice, he's not in a rush. He's not doing this and dropping them down. It's very deliberate and slow because it's the explosiveness that he's trying to capture. He's not just trying to throw the weights around and do a bunch of repetitions. He's focusing on good leg drive every time. And another key component to the power clean is coordination. It's very difficult to project a weight in one direction and then drop and switch directions, catch and stabilize. So this is sort of like the epitome of athleticism.
Yeah, and when you drop down underneath, it's like a free fall. You have to let your leg just like a free fall. You let everything go.
So this is one of those motions that you might find almost too complicated in the beginning. And remember, the best way to practice is with no weight. Get used to this motion of sort of jumping, landing, and punching your elbows forward. Then eventually try to shorten the jump where it's just this. But in the beginning, if you find this too difficult, let's take a look at a fine substitution here. So if it's not going to be the same muscle energetics, we're going to lose some explosiveness, we're not getting the same coordination factor, but we're training similar muscles. So if I'm not able to do a power clean yet and I'm practicing just my body weight, I can do this when a power clean and a press or whatever pops up, and a push press pops up into the routine. I'm just going to lower down to a squat, stand, curl. So that's a fine substitution for the clean. Now, if it calls for a clean and press, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to squat, curl, and press. So throughout the movements, you might see that. Throughout the workout, you might see the need for a clean. There's a substitution, okay? We squat and we curl. And if it's a clean and push press or a dumbbell power clean with a push press, we're going to come here and press. Keeping everything very basic, but still working similar muscles. And that covers the basis of the dumbbell clean. Okay, the dumbbell swing it's kind of like a mix. It's a very functional exercise. It's not as explosive or requires much coordination as an Olympic lift, yet you're integrating the legs with an upper body movement. Similar to the high pull, similar to the power clean, yet I think a little bit more simplistic. but it's a great motion. It develops overall athleticism, I think. George, you want to go and pick up a dumbbell and
Absolutely.
show us how you do it? So notice George grabs a 30-pound dumbbell, which seems kind of heavy, but it's actually not that bad because he's using his legs. Remember, George is very strong, so you might not be at a 30 yet. You might start with a 5-pound weight, a 10-pound weight, even just your body weight. Now, if you notice as George is doing this, he takes a little pause at the top, right? And as he lowers down, his core is activated the whole entire time, and he maintains alignment here. He's not collapsing. If you notice, one of the key things here is where you look. So if I stay looking straight ahead, as I lower down and I swing up, my spine stays neutral. If I happen to try to follow the weight, I might overextend at the back and hurt my spine here, and I might injure myself if I try following it down. So don't really look at the weight with this one. Just stay looking straight ahead. Nice natural stance. And if you find that, there again, you feel the weight's getting out of control, you feel you might hurt your shoulder, you just don't feel comfortable going all the way up, you can always play with the range of motion with this, meaning I can dip a little bit more shallow, and I can swing not as high. So a substitution for this will be, as I'm here, just barely moving. And then as I feel more comfortable, I can start working my height up, driving my legs down more, to eventually getting into a full swing.
The power comes from his legs.
Yes.
Not from the shoulder. Don't try to lift the weight with your shoulder. It's all the glute, the core, and the legs.
And a key detail to that, if you just want to get that leg drive, is when you go down, try not to push off the balls of your feet. Try to push your heels down to the ground. That activates all of these muscles and it gives you much more power. And that's where the power comes from the hamstrings, from the glutes, from the back. And that covers the basics of the dumbbell swing. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about the dumbbell get up. We don't have to use a dumbbell, but it's probably the best variation, especially if you're using this at home. Some people, old strong, used to use barbells, used to use all kinds of big, heavy objects. Even you could probably even use a human body. Now, the thing about the get up, let's go ahead and show it a few times, George. Its entirety. If you notice throughout, George is keeping his eyes on the weight the whole time. That's very important. Don't discount that and just think he's just doing it for whatever reason. This is one of the most important details you can learn about this whole entire movement. Do not, at any time, take your eyes off this weight. Don't look at the screen. Don't watch us doing it. When you start doing your get-ups, the only thing is you and your weight. Because if you take your eyes off that weight, it's very likely, it could definitely happen, that this weight could come down and hit you. And you don't want to get hit in the head by a dumbbell, especially if you're using 15, 20, 30 pounds or more. It can cause some damage.
Absolutely.
Now, what would you say is the main functional value for you using that movement, George?
I would say when I fight, I use a technique called the hip eyes to stand back up from when I'm under one of my opponent.
So that's pretty much working the same muscles throughout.
Absolutely. It's pretty much the same pattern. The eyes, remember to keep the eyes on the dumbbell. The eyes that directed your movement. So when we're going up, keep looking up. Don't look down. And very important, don't look at us on the TV. You might hurt yourself.
Now let's go and try to break down what's happening with the get up. We're using no weight here because we're going to have George go very slow. And this is actually a great way to start learning how to use this. No weight in your hand and just looking at the hand that's up. Now let's break down what's happening here throughout, okay? So George his shoulders are working, everything's working. And now his abdominals are working, his obliques are working, the shoulder over here is working. As he comes up, now this is very important. Let's go ahead and stop here now, George. As George comes up, notice how he goes in the opposite direction of the arm that's extended. He comes up and his left arm, so if he's holding the weight with his right hand, or if he's looking at his right hand, his left arm is the base support here as he comes up. So this takes some of the stress off the body and it gives it throughout the structure. Let's stay here for a second, George. Let's come back down. I want to stress leg position. So you notice how when George came up here, the arm that's the post arm, being his left arm, is the same leg that's bent. This is the same position. We do this on purpose when we do our training because this is what we call the staggered butterfly guard or staggered hooks guard. He's doing this as a very functional transfer into the body. Now, at this point, George has to notice how this knee's up in the air, okay? His foot's down. When he decides to make his move and come up in the stand, he's going to hip heist up, meaning he's going to turn his hips up, and he gets his knee on the ground. And now as he comes up in the stand, he just drives upward. As he lowers back down, he sets his knee onto the ground, and he reverses the whole motion. Notice how as he steps, let's come back here real quick, George. Let's come up. Yeah, notice how when he comes down, he lets his foot flip around and his left arm post onto the ground. Then he lowers down elbow onto the elbow. Then he goes down to the shoulder. Then he lets his leg straighten all the way back out. So as you can see, there's a lot of movement going on, and you can't discredit any one move. You have to make sure that each one's done correctly. So it's very important. This is the most difficult part for people, is this, as I'm here, is getting this knee back, and as a base of support, I want to get it underneath my hip. It's very important as I'm doing this that I don't keep my knee too narrow, because then I'll collapse as I try to come up. So if you find that you can just get to here and that's about all you feel comfortable with, that's a half get up, and that is a fine substitution. So if necessary, you can come up just to the halfway point. So let's do a half get up, George. You notice the description is a little bit longer because we want to be sure that you're doing this correctly. This is a very important motion. So as he comes up, start to drive up and sit all the way up into the post position. There we go. Now that's a half get up. Let's slide back down, George. So you go down elbow, shoulder, line straight, and then back up again, a half get up. Now if you notice now here, if he's going to do the full get up, he's just basically going to pull his left leg back underneath of him. There you go. So that gives him a base support. He's going to turn, straighten up the body, come fully into standing, and then it reverses the motion. That's a full get up. He's going to come back down to the knee, fold the left leg in, post the left arm, then lower down, elbow, shoulder, flat on the ground. And that covers the dumbbell get up.